Well, today's presentation, we have the illustrious Mike Stagg going to talk to us about winter recreation risk. Oh boy, we got snow in the hills, Mike. It's uh,
It's here.
it's here. What are
It's
we?
here
What are
whether
we
we
gonna?
whether we like it or not, right?
Right.
It might not feel
Yeah.
like it today, 70 degrees today and tomorrow, but it's coming and it's coming quick, and we got to be prepared for what's to come. I know we're throwing you a bit of a curveball today. Usually Jason's on doing these loss prevention webinars because he's much better at them than I am. And I do the short ones in the morning. But we thought we'd switch it up a little bit for you and give you a different face for our loss prevention webinar today. So as we talk winter recreation risk, everyone, what are we all worried about? Okay, why are we worried about stuff with rec and with winter coming? Hey, well, we're worried about liability. We're worried about the world that we live in, people coming out to sue us, right? We live in a world where unfortunately everybody's looking for some reason to get after us, especially for us in our government recreation type businesses, right? They're all trying to find a quick buck or a way to pin it on us that we've done something wrong. Okay, so let's talk today on things that we can do to help reduce our liability as it pertains to winter recreation. Okay, what is liability? Liability is the state of being responsible for something, especially as governed by the law. And what also it says, liability says, is we have to be found negligent. Okay. What that means is that we had a duty. We had a duty to provide something or provide a safe experience for somebody. And we didn't. There was a breach. Something happened. And because of that, there was an injury. Okay. Now that short clip you saw, that's just my wife and daughter sledding down a hill. Okay. But how could that be a liability for us? Okay, we're going to talk about that today. Talk about what we can do. So we first talk about the duty. Okay, what is a duty? A duty is a legal obligation. We have a legal obligation to provide a standard of reasonable care. And what is the standard of reasonable care? Well, we have to provide an environment or a program or something when we put something out there that we are going to give them an experience that is going to be safe from known hazards. Okay. And now who do we owe this responsibility to provide this legal obligation of reasonable care? Well, we owe it to invitees, people we're inviting to come in and participate in our programs. If we have a sledding hill that we've designated as a city sledding hill, or an ice skating rink, or something like along a Nordic track, a bike park, okay, a trail system, we are inviting people to come in and use these facilities by either signing up for our programs or just partaking in them because they are out there in the wild for somebody to come and use. Okay. We also have a duty to the trespassers. Now, that might sound a little crazy that we have a duty to provide a safe environment to somebody who is trespassing on our property, but we do. Okay. These things are what they consider an attractive nuisance. Okay. Even things that are closed or things that we try to limit access to and things like that. Okay, they are considered those attractive nuisances. Check out the picture here. Go try the sledding hill at Sand Hollow or Salt Hollow Park. Okay, be careful and have fun. As you look at the hill, though, what do you notice? Yeah, you can see that the sun's glinting off it. You can see that, man, that thing's a sheet of ice. We are inviting people to come and use the sledding hill at our park and saying, here it is. We've opened it for you. We're promoting it and saying, come and use it, please. We've got now a duty to make sure that we provide a standard of reasonable care that says we have met that expected standard of care, that we have ensured, and we've done everything possible to make sure that this environment and this experience that you're going to have is going to be safe for you. It's going to be safe for the spectators and the people around, and that you're going to have a good time while you do it. So we've got to make sure that we do a few things to make sure that we meet the expected standard of care. Okay, so as you're running your programs or as you're promoting them or thinking about things you might want to do this winter as part of your recreational programs, think about what the standard of care is for each of those programs and determine, have we met it? Have we met what the standard of care is? If you've got a question on, this is kind of what we're thinking, are we on the right track? Please let Jason or I know if you need some help. We are happy to help determine with you as we work together and consult with you if you've met what an expected standard of care might be for this specific recreational activity. Okay, what we have to do, we have to evaluate the facilities that we're going to be utilizing, the facilities that we're going to use for these different activities. We have to evaluate the activity itself. Are we providing everything that we need to in order to ensure the safety of not only the people participating, but also our staff? If we have staff running, we have a referee at a hockey game, or we have an ice sheet attendant or something like that. Okay, we've got to make sure that we provide a standard of care, not only for the participants, but also for our employees. We have to write down what that standard of care is. Okay, we've got to make a plan that says this is our standard of care. These are the things that we've got to do in order to make sure that we are making that this is a safe and enjoyable activity for people to come and participate in. And then the last part of standard of care is the most important part, is that we communicate what our standard of care is to not only to our staff members, so they know where they have to provide that care up until. What are the steps they have to follow? What are the preventative measures they have to do? What is the maintenance that has to be done in order to make sure that we provide a great standard of care? We also need to communicate that standard of care to the public. And how do we do that? We do that maybe through rules and regulations and signs and education and making sure that the public knows how to safely use the pieces of equipment or the activities and the things that we're doing. Okay, we educate the staff to educate the public. Those are things that we need to do to make sure we communicate what a healthy standard of care is inside the organization. And we need to document these things. Again, like I said earlier, we need to document all these things that we're doing: preventative care, maintenance, rule setting, training, all this stuff with our recreational programs in the winter. We need to make sure that we document it. If it isn't written down, it never happened. Okay, that's something I always like to say. If it never is written down, it never happened. You can say that we did this. Yeah, we did the training, or we maintained the sidewalk. This is when we absolutely every single day we go out and we clear the trail of debris, or we make sure that the ice is free of pitting and cracking and things like that. But if it's not documented and something happens, there's nothing that we can really do to help you out. Okay, make sure you document these things. Write them down so that you can have good documentation. Now, they could be a hard copy of a documentation, or they could be a digital thing. Okay, either is okay, but just make sure that it is documented, because if it isn't written down, it never happened. Something that we can do is using a checklist. Okay, a checklist is a great thing that we can do to help with writing and documenting these things down. So for each of your winter recreation programs, having a checklist on preventative measures and safety things that we have to do every single day before the games, before the practices, before we open it to the public, whatever it is, let's make sure that we have a good system in place that we're using to track findings to completion. Now, what does that mean? What that means by tracking findings to completion is if we find a problem, we identify a problem inside of one of our inspections, that there is a constant trail of touches on who that information goes to and is passed along to, and what that person does to ensure that that problem gets rectified so that it's not a problem anymore. So if there's a problem found, Mike finds the problem, but what does Mike do with it next? Okay, he puts it into the system. And what happens there is how does it get tracked? Does it then go to Jason? And then Jason takes it gets assigned to him, and then he goes and he fixes it. He does all the work and he fixes it and he puts it back in service. We need to have that paper trail in place that says when Mike gave it to Jason, what did Jason do? What were the steps? What were the things that Jason did in order to put it back into a satisfactory condition where we can open that attraction again. Okay, that's what we mean by tracking those findings to completion. Problem identified all the way through until problems rectified. And the situation, the equipment, the activity, the environment is safe again for us to go in and open it back up and have people come back in and start using it again. Okay, so make sure we have a good documentation system in place that allows us to track things to completion. A lot of us, we have a good system in place that says, if I find a problem and identify the problem, I'm going to put it into a work order system or something along those lines. We do a really good job of that. But a lot of times we see the ball being dropped a little bit in this range of after the problem's been identified and passed on to a maintenance crew or to a supervisor or something. Where's we see the gap here on how did we get that thing back into service, or how did we fix that problem that was found? Okay, we need to fill that gap in with this documentation, making sure that we track those findings all the way through until they're completed. All right, let's keep moving here. We also have a duty to warn. Okay, we have a duty to warn the public of any kind of hidden hazards that may be in place when we go and we have a winter recreational opportunity. So things like if we have a pond that is part of our park system, okay, we need to make sure that we warn of any kind of hidden hazards that might be there. Shallow water, no diving, no swimming, whatever it may be. We need to warn the public of the hidden hazards that may be around. Okay, signage is important. Other things like education and maybe closing off areas because they're dangerous in the wintertime. Those might be things that we need to do, because we do have a duty to make sure that we inform the public of things around there. Now, I know you're thinking to yourself, but wait, we have governmental immunity, right? We have immunity from being sued because we're the government, right? Well, here's the code. Here's what it says. Except as may be otherwise provided in this chapter, each governmental entity or an employee of a governmental entity are immune from any suit for any injury that results from the exercise of a governmental function. So we offer a rec program. Hey, we're going to have to sign a waiver, and we have governmental immunity because this is what it says. We're a governmental entity, and you're coming in and you can't sue us because we have this immunity. There are a few instances, though, of where governmental immunity is waived, and we've got to be aware of this. And this is why we have to be so focused on these winter recreational risks. Okay, if there was an injury caused by defective, unsafe, or dangerous conditions, we don't have governmental immunity anymore. If an injury was proximately caused by a negligent act or an omission of an employee, so an employee was supposed to do something, an employee messed up and missed something, and then somebody got hurt, governmental immunity is waived again. Okay, we need to make sure that we do these checks and then we do these maintenance things, and we've got a good system in place that is going to help us if we do have an unfortunate accident happen. Okay, these are the things that we need in place to ensure that we, as the trust, can do everything that we can to defend you, to do everything that we can to make sure that we are putting the best defense forward if something happens in one of your recreational activities. Okay, make sure that we do these things so that we can have governmental immunity work for us. Now, no person can make a claim against or recover from any individuals because of their participation in recreational risk, a county, municipality, local district, that kind of thing. There are inherent risks in play when people participate in recreational activities. We all know this. We have them sign waivers that say these things. An integral and natural part of participating in a recreational activity is having an inherent risk in that. Things like rodeo, skateboarding, skydiving, ice skating is in here. Fishing, hiking, walking, skiing is included. Okay, all these things are what are considered inherent risks. Okay, but that doesn't mean just because it's an inherent risk and says, well, you could get hurt if you participate in this. There's still things that we have to do to ensure that we keep our folks safe. Okay, so that we can ensure that governmental immunity can work for us. and so we don't have this additional liability. So what do we do, and how can we avoid liability? Well, I think these are our steps that we can do. Okay, we can identify our exposures, we can identify the controls to those exposures, and then implement those controls. Not just identify them, like this is what we think we can do, but actually implement them, doing those controls and living the walk, right? Verify those controls are in place by conducting audits and making sure that the staff is doing what they're supposed to do in order to make sure that the exposures are going away. And then we're going to document these things. We're going to document the audits like we talked about earlier, and we're going to repeat it, rinse and repeat over and over and over again. Identify the exposures, identify the controls, implement those controls, verify the controls, and then document the completion of those things. Okay? So let's talk about specifically now risks here in the wintertime, okay, around our recreational activities. We talked a lot about the background stuff that we need to do. Now let's put it into play. What are some things that we can do to put these steps into play around identifying hazards and then the controls that we need to implement in order to help take down the liability that we have because of our winter recreation activities? Okay, these things, I've got a few here that we'll go through. Facility planning, things around ice skating, sledding hills, Nordic skiing and snowshoeing, winter trails, bike trails, things like that. Okay, things that we don't want to end up in the newspaper for, in the news for, like you see the story on KSL about a kid falling through the ice at Jensen Pond in Syracuse. Okay, I lived in Syracuse at the time this happened. Okay, this was a horrible accident that never should have happened if the correct controls were in place. Okay, facility planning. What we want to do is we want to walk around, and then today and tomorrow are good days to do this because it's going to be nice outside. Okay, it's going to be a great time today to go around and walk around and say, what is going to happen here during the winter? What is going to happen at this structure, in this playground, at this park in the wintertime? Okay, what's going to happen when it's dark? Because it's getting dark. We just went through daylight savings time, and I'm wholly convinced that the sick individual, whoever thought about daylight savings time, they didn't have children because my kids were up. It didn't matter. Anyway, I couldn't sleep. There was no fallback for my wife and I because the kids were still up. And it gets dark now earlier. And it's getting dark at 5 o'clock at night, 5:30 at night. What's going to happen during the dark or when it's wintertime? Take a look at the picture here. There's a huge snowstorm that happens. What does this turn into? Yeah, it turns into a sledding hill. Okay, it turns into an attractive nuisance for somebody to come and climb right up here on this roof area and use it as a sledding hill, or jump off it into the snow, or do other things that could get them hurt, that could put the city or the district or the county at liability for creating a nuisance and then not doing things to mitigate that nuisance. So what do we have to do? We have to take action. When we find things inside our facility planning audits, things that we've identified that could be problems, we got to take action like this organization did. You can see here, same picture, taken just a little bit later, they put a railing around. What does that do? That puts action into play and says, hey, look at this. We've done something to take away some liability here by creating a barrier for them so they can't get up on the roof here and use it as a sledding hill. Okay, great idea and a great institution of facility planning and making sure that you identify a problem, identify some controls we can put into play, and make sure we do those things. Okay, other things to think about: roofs, snow, and icicles. Where are icicles going to form on your off of your roofs? Okay, because we all know what the kids want to do. They want to grab the biggest, longest icicle, and they're going to have sword fights with it, or they're going to run at somebody like they're riding a horse in a chariot and they have a javelin in their hand. Okay, we know what they're going to do. Maybe it's just my kids, but we know what they're going to do. Okay, we've got to plan for these things. So making sure that we take the time to go and clear out our rain gutters today, tomorrow, this week, before this happens, before this becomes an issue of ice damming inside of our rain gutters. Take and empty the leaves out and make sure that water can drain. Make sure that we've got plans in place to remove icicles or snow that has collected on roofs and things like that. Okay, this is where we make those plans. What about ice skating? Okay, if we're going to allow ice skating inside of our organizations, if we have a pond and we're going to say, yeah, you can come and ice skate here, let's avoid water bodies. Avoid a pond, avoid lakes, avoid turning your community pond in your park into an ice skating rink. Why? It's so unpredictable. Okay, it is so incredibly unpredictable about the ice, about the thickness there. Okay, let's make sure that we're trying to avoid ice skating on water bodies at all costs. Okay, if we're going to do ice skating, though, if we have an ice skating rink or we have a ribbon that we put in the wintertime or whatever it is, okay, if we're going to do it, let's embrace it. Let's make sure we do it right and do it right every single time. When you think about ice skating, it's all about location, choosing the right location on where you want to put this rink, what area you're going to flood to provide a safe experience for your people coming in. Again, try and avoid the already there bodies of water, ponds and lakes and rivers and things like that. Okay, let's not use those for our winter recreation, ice skating, extravaganzas that we're going to do or whatever. Okay, have to make sure we maintain the surface of that ice skating rink, maintain it against pitting, against cracks, and against grooves and things like that. We want to set and enforce rules. Make sure you set and enforce rules across the ice skating area so that everybody knows what the expectations are. Control access means we're going to control access when we want the public to be able to access this part of the ice skating rink. Okay, we're going to monitor their use and we're going to document all these things that we're doing, again, to ensure the safety of the rink. Okay, when we talk about maintaining the surface, we want to make sure that we are maintaining it and there's no holes, there's no cracks, there's no snow on top of the rink, on top of the ice. Okay, what do we do about spills? If somebody is carrying a thing of hot chocolate and they're skating around the rink, what do we do if they spill that hot chocolate? Okay, what about ruts and grooves caused by people skating on that rink over a long period of time? How do we maintain it? What's our schedule like for resurfacing the ice? Okay, think about those things and making sure that we've got good documentation in place that says when we have maintained and taken care of the surface and the things we do before we open to the public and the things we do during operational times so that we can ensure that safety of the surface is good. Okay, as far as rules with ice skates, make sure you set the rules and you enforce them. Okay, you've got to make sure that you set rules and enforce them. I went last year with my family to a local ice skating ribbon type thing, and they had folks inside of the shack that were handing you out your skates and things like that. They had their list of rules there that you had to look at while you're getting your skates. But once you got your skates and left that area and went out to go ice skating, actually, there was nobody out there. There was no staff out there. There was no one enforcing rules. So there were teenagers, there were adults, there were people who weren't obeying the rules, who were trying to skate the wrong way, who were doing things they shouldn't have been, who were carrying hot chocolate and coffee and things like that onto the ice rink when it was expressly stated inside the rules not to do that. But they weren't ever being told not to do that. Okay, there was nobody enforcing the rules. We need to make sure with ice skating that the rules are being enforced because, man, we got some sharp things out there because many of us do allow folks to bring in their own ice skates and things like that. And if they do that and they're incredibly sharp, we are inviting liability in that we need to make sure that we're enforcing rules so that if something goes wrong, that we at least were out there trying to enforce those rules to make sure that things were staying safe. Okay, so we need to make sure that we enforce those rules, especially with ice skating. Now, what about ice hockey? Okay, maybe we can offer a winter ice hockey program. Okay, make sure your ice surface is free of any debris, bare spots, and ruts inside the ice. Make sure that if it's during play or practice, that the rink gates are closed securely during play and practice. Okay, they're all going to have gates that are going to open up. Make sure that those gates are always closed securely during play and during practice. Make sure there's no protrusions from the glass, from the boards, from the nets, from the cages on the nets. Okay, let's make sure that all of those things are in proper working order. Talk about air quality monitoring. Make sure you have good air quality monitoring going on so we can ensure that the air is safe to breathe, because we're using those chemicals to make sure the ice stays cold and things like that inside these indoor rinks. Let's make sure we have good quality air quality monitoring there. Make sure that you have a hard and fast rule that there is no one allowed on the ice surface while the resurfacing machine is out on the ice. Okay, so no one on the ice surface until the resurfacing machine leaves. Till the Zamboni's off, nobody's on the ice. Okay, hard and fast rule. We shouldn't even have to discuss, well, what if this, what if that? No, hard and fast rule. If the Zamboni's on the ice, nobody else is on the ice. Okay, do we have protection for errant pucks? Okay, do we have nets around where pucks may exit the rink area, in the most common areas around your goals, in the around the blue line south maybe, or blue line north, whatever it may be, maybe center, maybe between the blue lines you don't have pucks, don't have nets there, but definitely blue line beyond, you think about having nets there for some errant puck protection, making sure that we can keep our area and our folks and our spectators safe. Other things with ice hockey, it's important that we have regular inspection of players' equipment. Okay, if we're offering a winter recreational ice hockey program, we need to make sure that we are inspecting the players' equipment to make sure that it's in good quality working order. Okay, something that you may want to train referees on and coaches on is inspection of that equipment, making sure that it's still in proper working order. The shoulder pads, the helmets, the face cages, the guard, the goalie blockers, things like that. They're all in safe working condition. Players must always wear all their hockey safety equipment. You have to make sure that everybody is always wearing all their safety equipment. Okay. And think about neck laceration protection. Do you require that? That is something that is becoming more and more common inside of the hockey world, is making sure that neck laceration protection is worn at all times, and it's becoming required in many leagues. And this is something that we would absolutely have you look at inside of your own Winter Hockey League Association. Do you want to make this a mandatory thing? We would 100% recommend that neck laceration protection be a mandatory part of all personal protective equipment for folks who are participating in ice hockey programs. Okay? Too many things can happen, and neck laceration protection, $60. Okay? We require that. We should maybe require those things for our ice hockey participants. Make sure you have a specific emergency action plan written for hockey. Okay? You may have a plan for the building. You may have a plan for ice skating on your rink, but you need to have a specific plan for hockey emergencies. Okay? Because of the way that people have to get onto the ice to take care of somebody, to take care of an individual who's hurt, okay, or to take care of something that's happening. Make sure that you have a good emergency action plan written specifically around when there's ice hockey going on the ice, and that people are aware, not only that your staff is aware, but that the coaches are aware of the emergency action plan for your ice hockey program. Okay. Now, what about waivers? We have them sign waivers and things like that. What about waivers for all of these different recreational activities? Don't they protect us? Sure, but don't rely on them. Okay. The reality about waivers is they don't do a lot. They don't do a lot in a court. Okay. Use them as a tool. A lot of what a waiver is a deterrent for the participants and the parents and the people who are actually doing the activity to be a little bit more safe, and a little bit more self-conscious about what they're doing. because they think, oh, I've signed a waiver, and if I get hurt, I can't do anything about it. Well, the reality is the waiver doesn't really stand up too much. Okay, use it as a tool. It is not your last line of defense here, folks. Okay, use it as a tool in your organizations to help. Now let's talk about sledding hills. 50,000 plus accidents happen every year nationally on sledding hills. Okay, so again, make a decision. If you decide to allow sledding on your hills and you promote it at your city parks and things like that, if you have a program that says we're going to do sledding and hot chocolate or whatever it is, if you decide to allow it, you got to manage it. Okay, you have to remove or protect against any kind of hazards that may be there. You have to make sure that climbers and sliders are separated. So there's separate lanes to go on for the folks who are climbing up the hill and the folks who are coming down the hill. Take a look at your slope angle. How far that we allow them to slide down and how fast they can go. Do we have to put berms up? Do we have to put bales of hay up or whatever it is to ensure that people stay safe and in their lane? And then look at the space between the sledders, between your designated sliding areas on where you have people going down on sleds. Okay. If you don't want them going down on sleds on your hills, you have to make sure you control the access to your park. And make sure that you educate the users on the types of sleds that they can use. If you offer a program and a city or a rec sponsored program, you have to inspect the surface. You have to make sure that there's good supervision there, that they aren't building jumps and things like that. And if the conditions are too bad, icy conditions, not enough snow, things like that, that you close the area off and make sure you limit the access. Okay. Now, what about unintended sledding hills? Things that you're like, we never wanted this to be a sledding hill, but now it is. People are just going and doing it. Things like bike parks. Okay. Big berms at bike parks and jumps and things like that. Okay, those are unintended sledding hills. Those are now an attractive nuisance that you might have to deal with. Skate parks. Okay, the big bowls in skate parks, they get snowed on, packed up with snow. Same thing with swimming pools. Hey, maybe you have an outdoor swimming pool inside of your organization, and you get a lot of snow there. It's a sloped pool, and people are now using it as a sledding hill. Okay, those are other things you've got to think about. If you offer a Nordic skiing program, again, if you decide to provide it, you've got to maintain the trails for that program. You have to groom it. You have to inspect it for conditions and for hazards and things like that. So if you offer a program and it's something that you decided to provide for the public for use, you've got to make sure you maintain it. What about winter trails? If you take the money to build a trail system, you've got to maintain the trail all year long. It's not just not when the snow's here, not just a summertime trail. Okay. But if you take the trail and it's going to be open all year, you've got to maintain the trail all year long. Make sure you plan your trails and your budgets accordingly to make sure that you can maintain the trail throughout the winter time. And it's not just a summertime activity or a spring or a fall time thing. If it's an all seasons trail and it's open all year, you've got to plan those trails and your budgets accordingly. What about bike parks? A lot of our organizations are putting bike parks in. If you're going to have a bike park and you're going to have it open in the wintertime, make sure you maintain it. Okay. If you're going to open it, make sure you maintain it. Maintain the surface. Set and enforce your rules. Control your access. Monitor your use and document your maintenance and your inspections and things like that of the park, the same as you would do in the summertime. We have to ensure if we have an all-season park, all-season bike park, skate park, Nordic park, trail system, that we maintain it all year long. Okay. What we need to do if we're not going to maintain it, if we're going to close it off, we need to have ways that we can control the access. Okay. We need to establish when and why the facility will be opened or closed. We need to have signage. We need to have things up or means to control the access, whether it's barriers or fencing, doors or cages or whatever it may be, to make sure that we control access to those buildings. Now, if you do have an accident inside of your winter recreation programs, this is where you have to make sure that you have a plan and you train on it before the accident happens. Having your emergency action plan in place and making sure that your staff members know exactly what they need to do is going to be pivotal to making sure that these accidents don't turn into huge things. Okay. Always make sure you have a way to collect information from the folks who are involved in the accident. Never admit fault. Never admit, oh gosh, I'm so sorry. The hill was so slippery today. They tried to maintain it. And they tried to get the snow up, and they couldn't because it was snowing so hard. I'm so, saying things just like, I'm sorry. That's akin to admitting fault. Okay. Don't admit fault. If there is something that's wrong, make sure you make repairs to it. Make sure you get it done and get it done right. And you prepare a response, because if there's a big accident that happens, like at a sledding hill, at a Nordic track, at your ice skating rink, if something happens, okay, you're going to need to prepare a response. So make sure that we have all things documented and things in place. Your emergency action plans in these situations are paramount to determine who needs to do what and how we need to document this accident. Okay, make sure inside of your emergency action plan that you've written in how the emergency medical services will access different parts of your facility, whether it's a trail, whether it's an ice skating rink that's indoor, whether it's a ribbon that's outdoor. Maybe it's a winter bike trail. Okay, how does EMS access this place? Where do they go? Where do they park their vehicle? What areas do we got to keep clear? You can't just think just because it's wintertime and there's snow on the ground and things like that, we don't need to maintain some of these things. These are all things that if we have it designated as a year-round type activity, that we make sure that we maintain it all year long. Okay. Remember, we have to know where our exposures lie. We have to identify those things and then build controls in place that will help take those exposures down. Okay. Inspect your facilities and make sure you follow up and document things to completion so that we can ensure that we've got all of our ducks in a row. So if something does happen, that we've got the best line of defense for you. But the thing that we can do to make sure to try and buy down our liability is to know those exposures and then identify controls that we can do to limit our exposures to them. Okay. I know that's a lot of stuff. Jason, do we have any questions out there? Anything that we need to cover more?
Folks, if you got any questions or comments, please type those in the chat box right now, and we can play Stump the Dummy and see if Mike's got an answer for it. No, this was great material, Mike, and really timely with what we're going into. And we don't have to have an active winter recreation program to have winter recreation happening, and so we have to realize what's going on in our communities. Looking there for questions. Type those questions in that chat box. Yeah, it's those things can kind of hit us out of left field if we're really not out looking and paying attention to what's going on around us. I got no questions here. Come on, folks.
Come on, folks. I know you got something.
That's where
but if you don't, that's fine too. Just make sure that when you go out today and tomorrow, I think are great days to go out and inspect those facilities and plan what we're going to do when the snow starts to come. Make sure our ducks are in a row and we've got things set up for success for us here in the wintertime for your staff.
Awesome. And if you have questions, give us a call.
If you have questions, give us a call. We're always here to help.
Sometimes these things, we're building these things at our facility, a sledding hill or something like that. Please give us a call, because we are happy to give you some advice on that from our angle and what we think you can do to manage your risk.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
Okay, folks, thanks.
Go out and have a safe day.